For most of my childhood, my mother had one phrase she used more than any other. That never happened. You've always had such a vivid imagination. She said it so many times, so calmly, that I stopped trusting anything I remembered. By the time I was a teenager, I genuinely believed I was the unreliable one. The one who made things up. The one whose own memory couldn't be trusted.
Before we go further, if you grew up doubting your own memory, doubting whether the thing you clearly remember actually happened, I want you to hear this. That doubt is not a flaw in you. Very often it was installed. Tonight, two people whose parents didn't hit them, didn't scream, they simply rewrote reality over and over until these two stopped trusting their own minds. It has a name, and naming it is where you get your reality back.
I need to explain how it worked, because from the outside it sounds like nothing. There was no event you could point to. It was just a slow, constant correction of my reality. If my father shouted at me until I cried, and I brought it up the next day, my mother would look genuinely puzzled and say, "He raised his voice a little. You're being dramatic." He adores you. If I remembered being left somewhere, forgotten, she'd say, "We were 5 minutes late. You make it sound like we abandoned you." Every memory I had, she would take and shave down and hand back to me smaller. And she did it so gently, so reasonably, that arguing felt insane. The worst part wasn't the big things. It was that I started doing it to myself. I'd remember something clearly, and then immediately think, "No, I'm probably exaggerating. I'm probably remembering it wrong." I became my own gaslighter. I had learned the job so well, I didn't need her to do it anymore. I went into my 20s genuinely unable to trust a single one of my own memories, apologizing constantly, always assuming I was the one who had it wrong.
This is gaslighting, and Nina's describing its most insidious feature. The goal was never to win one argument. The goal was to make her doubt her own perception so thoroughly that eventually she'd police it herself. And she did. When a person can no longer trust their own memory of events, they become completely dependent on someone else to tell them what's real. That is not carelessness. That is control, and it is remarkably effective precisely because it leaves no evidence.
What saved me was a shoebox. I was clearing out my old room, and I found a diary I'd kept when I was 14. And I sat on the floor and read it, and I started shaking. Because there it all was. In my own handwriting, the night it happened, written by a kid who had no reason to lie to her own diary. Every single thing I'd been told I imagined. The forgetting, the shouting, the apology I was made to give for being upset. It was all there, exactly as I remembered it. I wasn't crazy. I had never been crazy. I had been right the whole time, and someone had spent 18 years convincing me I wasn't.
Notice what the diary did. It gave her an external record that couldn't be edited by the person editing her. That's often the turning point in these stories. A photograph, an old letter, a sibling who quietly says no. I remember it too. The relief people feel is enormous, but so is the grief, because it means the doubt they carried their whole life was manufactured. You weren't fragile. You weren't dramatic. You were accurate, and it was inconvenient. Our second story is a different flavor of the same thing. Nina's mother rewrote events. Claire's mother rewrote something even harder to hold on to, Claire's own feelings.
My mother never denied that things happened. She denied how I felt about them. That was her whole method. If she said something cruel and I looked hurt, she wouldn't say it didn't happen. She'd say, "I was joking, why are you so sensitive?" If I cried, "You're overreacting, this is exactly what I mean about you." If I was angry, "You're being hysterical, calm down." Every single feeling I had about the way she treated me was, according to her, the actual problem. Not the thing she did. My reaction to it. So I learned to distrust my own feelings, the way Nina learned to distrust her memory. If I felt hurt, I'd immediately think, am I overreacting? Am I too sensitive? Is this me being hysterical again? I lost the ability to know whether my own emotions were reasonable. I'd feel something completely valid, hurt, anger, fear, and I'd override it because I'd been taught that my feelings were faulty equipment. I stayed in a bad marriage for 6 years because of this, honestly. I couldn't trust the part of me that kept saying, "This is wrong." I'd trained it into silence.
This is emotional gaslighting, and it's harder to catch than the factual kind, because there's no diary that can prove a feeling. When a parent responds to your every emotion by telling you the emotion itself is the problem, you're too sensitive, you're overreacting, you can't take a joke, they're teaching you that your internal signals can't be trusted. And your feelings are how you know when something's wrong. Disable those, and a person will tolerate almost anything for years because the alarm has been disconnected.
The thing that turned it for me was watching my mother do it to my daughter. She said something sharp to a 6-year-old, my little girl's face fell, and my mother said it. "Oh, don't be so sensitive." And I heard it. From the outside, in someone else's voice, aimed at a child I would burn the world down for. And I thought, that is not sensitivity. That is a completely appropriate reaction to being spoken to unkindly. And if it's true for my daughter, then it was true for me. I wasn't too sensitive. I was responding correctly to things that hurt. It just took seeing it done to someone I actually believed deserved better than I ever thought I did.
And that's the reframe I want to leave you with tonight for both of these. You're remembering it wrong, and you're too sensitive are not observations. They're instruments. One erases what happened, the other erases how you felt about it, and both leave you dependent on the very person harming you to tell you what's real. If you've spent your life doubting your memory or apologizing for your feelings, try, just once, trusting them instead. You may find, like Nina and Claire, that the equipment was never broken. It was just being jammed. You are not remembering it wrong. You are not too sensitive. You are paying attention the whole time. I'll see you in the next one.